No team in college football would have benefited from a 12-team playoff like Penn State. They would have made it 6 of the last 8 seasons. So in 2024, 12-team playoff, Penn State makes it, right? Appreciate you joining us here at the Voice of College Football, breaking down the game we all love each and every day with you. Best discussion, debate, and analysis. We are breaking down the Penn State schedule game by game and making a record prediction. Let's get right to it with the Nittany Lions gunning for a 10-2 season. That appears to be the breaking point. We have done the analysis year by year, implementing the 12-team model to the college football playoff era, and 10-2 gets you in the playoffs. 9-3, you've got about a 15 to 20% chance of making it. You certainly have to be playing in the SEC or the Big Ten. Let's look at Penn State's schedule and the likelihood of advancing to the CFP for the first time ever. At West Virginia, yes, Penn State's going to be a heavy favorite in that game. No doubt about that. They are a double-digit favorite, but Morgantown can be a hornet's nest. It's one of the most difficult places to play in college football. We see those lists all over the offseason, and Morgantown should be considered. This is an old-time rivalry game that West Virginia faithful will be waiting for. And consider that although on the scoreboard, Penn State outlasted West Virginia and won it comfortably, if you watched the game, it was generally a 1-2 score game until very late. West Virginia was in this game into the fourth quarter in Happy Valley, a team coming off a 5-7 season that finished 9-4, and West Virginia's got one of the highest returning production teams in all of college football. Look out, Penn State at West Virginia, a possible upset. So understand that it's easy to fall into chalk mode and just basically say, okay, Team A is going to be favored in these 7 games. They're going to be an underdog in these 3 games, and the other 2 are toss-ups. So they're going to win the game at home and lose the game on the road. Bingo, they're 8-4. Okay, that's playing the percentages a certain way. When you're looking for upsets, keep this in mind. That out of the top 25 games each week in college football, I've been charting this for years. It's like clockwork. The percentages and the probabilities work into this model every week. So there's about 20 or 22 games in the top 25 because obviously there are teams with byes, and then there are also games in which top 25 teams play each other. Out of those 20 to 22 games, there are 4 to 5 upsets every week. So you can't just say chalk all the time and say, well, Penn State, they're going to lose to Ohio State. They're going to beat everyone else. Maybe they slip up against a team that's as good as they are. And there you go, 10-2. There are going to be about 20 or 25% of the games that are losses from these top 10 to 15 type teams in the nation that are not going to be the losses that we expect. Again, mark down the West Virginia game. I don't know if I'm going to predict that as an upset, but I'm certainly ready to pull the trigger. Then we've got Bowling Green at home. We've got a bye week before Kent State, so that certainly does not help Penn State in regards to the positioning of that bye week. Then they start out Big Ten play in a light fashion at home against Illinois, at home against a UCLA team that is not supposed to be anything close to their 8-5 season under Chip Kelly in 2023. Then Penn State takes to the road all the way across country for what should be a much anticipated game this year and in the future at the LA Coliseum against USC. Now, Penn State's a better team than USC. As it stands right now, much can change in the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season. However, they've got to travel all the way across country. USC is certainly capable of winning this game. Penn State is going to be a less than touchdown favorite that you would think, and therefore this is a tricky spot for Penn State going to USC. But fortunately for them, they've got a lot of easy dates plus the bye week to prepare for USC on October 12th. Then they've got a bye week, and that's positioned well for Penn State to try to make a stretch run because after the bye week on the 19th, they go to Wisconsin. That's going to be a difficult trip. The Badgers are probably not up to Penn State's level. Coming off 7-6 last year, Wisconsin's got a difficult schedule to deal with themselves this year, but that game is in Camp Randall Stadium, and Penn State has had issues up there against Wisconsin in the past. Then they've got Ohio State at home, and of course Penn State continues to lose this game year after year after year after year. They have lost 13 of 14 to the Buckeyes November 2nd against what could be the number one team in the country at that point in the season. Washington coming off a national championship game appearance, but of course this is the most different team than any in all of college football. 21 new starters out of 22 spots. Only 4 players coming back that played significant time. New head coach, new coaching staff, new quarterback in Will Rogers, and of course a new conference for Washington. That is the whiteout game for Penn State in taking on the Huskies, who probably will be a close to 500 team. So Penn State needs to win that game, of course. Then you've got the date at Purdue. That's got to be a win. Minnesota on the road, and Maryland is a light stretch once they get past the Buckeyes. Minnesota's got one of the lowest win total projections by Vegas in all the Big Ten. Then it's the finale against Maryland at home, and the Terps under Mike Locksley have been steadily improving throughout the Big Ten, still cannot handle the heavyweights, and Penn State in particular has blasted Maryland most times in their meetings in recent years. Now, Maryland looking for a quarterback to replace Talia Tagovailoa. That's going to come down to Billy Edwards or MJ Morris, the incoming transfer from NC State. Of course, they're going to have that figured out by then. Penn State will be playing, you would think, for a college football playoff appearance at that point. Let's size it all up. On the plus side for Penn State, they do not play 3 of the very best teams in the conference. No Oregon, no Michigan, of course, and they have been all sorts of trouble for Penn State in recent years. No Iowa, and the Hawkeyes have either beaten Penn State or played them awfully tough in recent years, although Penn State disposed of them last year in Happy Valley 31-0. Penn State has had a rough time going to Kinnick Stadium, so no Iowa, Michigan, or Oregon. They have to deal with the Buckeyes, of course, at the top of the conference, and then the date to USC. Those are the 2 most obvious issues in going to Wisconsin as well. So you figure if Penn State loses 2 of the 3 and runs the table elsewhere, they are fine to go to the college football playoff at 10-2. Where are the likely pitfalls that could derail a playoff bid? It would be at West Virginia, I believe, right out of the gate against the Mountaineers. As we mentioned, this is going to be a difficult task, I believe, for Penn State. Also, the Washington game at home to a certain extent. Maybe Jed Fish gets it going by November. Other than that, you got to think that Penn State is a significant favorite in all these games. As it stands right now, this team is not as good as the 2 previous 10-2 editions. Those teams are better defensively. They had arguably the best defense in the country last year before Michigan kind of closed the deal on that debate through the college football playoff. But from a talent perspective, look at the NFL draft, look at all 3 levels. Penn State was loaded and athletically freakish last year, and they will be nearly as good, like a top 10 to 15 defense, but they lose Manny Diaz as the defensive coordinator. Tom Allen's good. He's capable on that side of the ball, but Manny Diaz is one of the best. And again, I don't believe that they have fully stocked the defensive side to the point where they had it last year with all those freak athletes on that side of the ball that are off to the NFL. The calling card that could come into play to help them is a down season last year from the 2 studs in the backfield, Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. They could bounce back and be better because the offensive line's supposed to be better. The wide receiver core, I do not believe was adequately addressed. Yes, Julian Fleming's a nice add and some other pieces that they tacked on to the wide receiver core, but they are not nearly elite or explosive enough there, and they want to be explosive. Also keep under consideration that you've got 3 new coordinators, offense, defense, and special teams, going to West Virginia in week 1. And also the big question that overrides just about everything else has to do with James Franklin coaching in the clutch and most likely Drew Aller and his improvement He's got all the tools. He can sling it. He can spin it. He's got extra special talent as a 5-star. And if you watch him just throw the ball, but it's about leadership, confidence, decision-making, and cutting it loose and letting it go and being a field general and being a clutch player when it counts. Drew Aller was not that against Ohio State and Michigan. Will he be that in 2024? All right, here's how it sizes up. They lose to Ohio State. They got USC on the road. They go to Wisconsin. I don't think they're going to lose all 3 of those games, so that sends them to the playoffs at 10-2, right? Whoa! Do they trip up at West Virginia? I think between USC, Wisconsin, and West Virginia, they lose one of those games. I don't think that there's anybody else on the schedule that can trip up Penn State. If there was, I would predict it because I don't think this team, from a personnel standpoint, is quite as good. They could lose to West Virginia and be fine through the rest of the Big Ten schedule outside of Ohio State. And let's not forget, they've got the Buckeyes at home and they've played them close every year, practically every year. So maybe they knock off the Buckeyes. Man, if Ohio State loses that game, Ohio State's in trouble. So Penn State, for as much as I want to find another upset, I think that they navigate USC, Wisconsin, West Virginia to the point that they win 2 out of those 3, lose to Ohio State, and it's a 10-2 finish for Wisconsin with both losses coming in the Big Ten. Could be. We'll wait for my prediction on the West Virginia game in week 1. We're going to have a big prediction special in just about a week right here at the Voice of College Football where we unveil all the predictions leading into week 0. Appreciate you being here on the Voice of College Football. Penn State, 10-2 should get you into the playoff, and we'll see what you can do from there right here at the Voice of College Football.